I can take my own experience, my own sense of loss and being, and struggle, trying to find a life after the military, and then and not being a combat veteran, and then you take that same experience and then you put, the being a combat veteran on top of that, because it's one thing when you're living together, in a non-combat environment, but you're still responsible for one another and all that kind of thing. It's another when you're surviving on a rock in Afghanistan, and and every day is like just miserable. You're either dying from boredom or from gunfire.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a really, and so all you have are those people that are with you in that situation. So then when you leave that, the sense of loss is like 10 times what my experience was, because you just have that just real grief. And then of course the idea of leaving people behind and losing people. So the trauma that they experience is significant. Now, having said that, my Veterans Court is not only for people that are combat veterans.
Talk to us about the Veteran Court. What does it offer, and talk to us about it.
Sure. The Veterans Court, the concept, it came to me. I actually learned about this concept from Pat McCann.
I was going to bring his name up. Yeah.
So Pat McCann, and I was having a really bad day, and the reason I was having a really bad day was because a Marine who was charged with driving with a child passenger, intoxicated with a child passenger. This Marine was an exceptional Marine. He had say 2 Bronze Stars for valor and 3 Purple Hearts in Iraq. This guy fought in Fallujah. He was like one of those first units to go in, and he was just a young man, and his experience was just horrible. He comes home, he gets his arm gets blasted up. He's at a hospital in San Antonio where they save his arm, but he's there for a year. In the process, and of course he's experienced all this trauma. He's married, but they have parades for him here in Houston and all of these things. And then after the parade is gone, then you're just kind of sitting in this room again, just like, what is this life really going to be?
What's my purpose?
Yeah. Where am I? My friends are, and you're thinking about the loss. Now, and part of his trauma was he lost 5 guys in his unit in one day in a firefight. And again, these guys are brothers, and so I didn't know anything when he appeared in my court. He was just another guy in my courtroom, and the lawyer that was representing him says, "Judge, I want to do a pretrial diversion on this case." And he tells me what kind of case it was, and this was like in 2008, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they weren't doing pretrial diversion, and on a DWI,
much less on a felony.
Right.
Yeah, felony
DWI. No.
Forget it. And but I didn't know anything about the case, but I was like, just hey man,
take your shot.
Yeah, go for it. And so they came back a month or so later, and the district attorney's office had approved the pretrial diversion.
Wow.
And the lawyer gave me the packet, and the prosecutor's like, "Judge, you have to read this guy's story." And so I read his story, and it just kind of sent me over the top. I was like, man, you go from being this hero to a felon overnight. And part of the problem was he had got addicted to painkillers.
Sure.
And so the trauma, the painkillers, his divorce had become final that evening, and it was just sent him over the top. So I was having a bad day, you know. But
Yeah.
I was happy for him. But I was really mad about, you know, what was happening because, you know, I know what happened to those Vietnam era veterans, and I was a young prosecutor seeing, you know, Vietnam era veterans coming through this system, and as a judge as well. But I was starting to see young people now, and it was making me angry. And I was just sitting down and just having a, you know, just kind of a bitch session with Pat.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, man, you know, I heard about this Veterans Court in New York." And so, you know, I Googled it and we looked at it and we're like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Nice.
And so me and Pat, you know, we got together and I started, you know, reaching out to my connections in Austin and in the legislature, as well as, you know, Caprice Cosper, who had started the drug courts, right?
Right.
And I was like, Caprice, you know, how, you know, this is what I want to do. How do I get it done? And of course, Mary Covington. And what she said, Mary Covington was like, look, Judge, this is what you do and this is what you do best. You go to Austin, you shake hands, you know, you tell your story, you know, and you tell people what's going on. And let me do all of the construction stuff, you know, designing, because she had already, you know, done
the
a drug
court,
court,
yeah.
so she knew how to do that. So that's what I did, and I went to Austin. It was in 2008. And if you recall, in 2008, it was like very contentious, right?
Sure,
And nothing
sure.
was happening
No.
in the legislature. There was only, you know, like one of the only pieces of legislation to go through was this legislation that had the Veterans Court was part of it. And so I'll never forget going down there and sitting in the room with the Senate committee, having a hearing, you know, on Veterans Court. So it was my turn to go up there and talk to him. And I swear, man, there was, I would say, Senator Hinojosa from South Texas, Vietnam era veteran. He was the only guy in there, and maybe one other person I don't recall. But he was the only guy that was sitting in there when I started to talk. And so I said, hey, look, I'm glad you're here, and I figured you'd be here because this is one of these deals where, you know, we're veterans, you know, soldier to soldier. We have to look after each other, and this is what's happening. So I started telling the story, and I had my the soldier that I was talking about, the Marine I was talking about. He came with me, and he was in his uniform, and the guy looked fantastic. He
Amazing.
He was
That's
dressed,
amazing.
and he was wearing he had his everything there, and so his medals, and so I introduced him to Senator Hinojosa, and I said, look, you know, we want to tell you what's happening, and so I told him the story about Marty, and I said, and he's here, and I had Marty stand up and come over there, and then I didn't know this, but they have a room in the back, and all the senators are in there, you know, they're eating donuts and drinking coffee.
yeah.
and
Yeah,
care
right,
less what the hell.
right.
But then, you know, they started hearing the story, and next thing I know, the panel was full. They all came out there to hear, you know, about, you know, this story of these veterans and what we were trying to do and accomplish in Houston, and then it just snowballed from there. I got invited up to, you know, to the governor's office to talk to the governor as well as his chief of staff, who was a Vietnam era veteran. So I had all kinds of support, and again, it was one of the only things to go through.